Susan Molinari, and this is my co-chair, Lucy Coludi. We're co-chairs of the American Italian Food Coalition, and we're here today to talk a little bit about what got us here as strong Italian women in the United States. So, Lucy, tell us a little bit about those moments in your background, in your heritage, maybe even stories from your ancestors that brought you to this point in life today.
Well, thank you, Susan. I am so proud of my Italian roots, and it's not surprising that I would have made a part of my life in politics because my great-grandfather was the mayor of Roseto in Puglia.
Of course.
And so I come by it naturally. I began my career actually in the United States Navy, and I served during the Vietnam War. And my father always said that my bravery came from the courage that his ancestors had to display given the rough times in the very far south of Italy and how poor people were. But one of my jobs in the Navy was, I was trained to be an aerial photographer. And it was during the war, and even though women did not go into battle, I was given the job of flying in photo Beechcrafts and taking pictures of Russian and Chinese ships.
How fascinating.
And turning the film over to the officers who would then decipher whether they were really carrying cargo.
What spurred that in you to take that up as a career?
I just love the strength that I was given by my family and the encouragement, and I've always felt strong and brave and adventurous.
That's what I was going to say. There must be a strong bravery part of it, being so young and being in a place where there were not a lot of females taking the lead and being on some risky missions.
Well, Susan, think about it. Think about what we learned about our parents and our grandparents. Our grandparents coming over to this country with nothing. I mean, these are the brave of the brave. Yeah. This story is repeated among many groups of people, not only Italians, but I know about the Italians, and I know that they came from tough beginnings, and they were so adventurous. That's the very important thing, to have a sense of adventure. And they did, and they passed that on to me. And I just knew that if I was going to join the Navy, I was going to be doing exciting things. And so I accepted those missions. And so when I left the Navy, I chose to make my life in, of all places, after growing up in Queens, New York, I made a life in North Dakota.
Who would have guessed?
Who would have guessed? And North Dakota was so accepting of someone like me, a Jewish Italian American. There were almost no Jews, and there were almost no Italians. But I made a great life there for myself and got very involved in politics. In fact, I ran the campaign for the United States Senate of a man named Kent Conrad.
Ah, I think I've heard that name before.
Yes, and I like to say that I rewarded him for winning that campaign. I married him. And so we made a wonderful life for ourselves in Washington, in the District of Columbia, with my husband in the Senate. And I became an executive with Major League Baseball.
So cool. Understand none of it, but I know that it's really cool.
Well, you know, you grow up, my generation, in New York, the history of Joe DiMaggio.
So Yankees, not Mets?
Oh, Mets.
Oh.
Yeah. Before there were the Mets, there were the Yankees, right? And so I knew everything about the Yankees, the lineup. I knew I could, in fact, to this day, I can tell you, Moose Skowron at first and Bobby Richardson at second and Tony Kubek at short. And I had a crush on Clete Boyer, who played third base. But of course, it was Yogi Berra, the Italian-American.
Sure,
right?
Joe DiMaggio, as you said.
Well, Joe DiMaggio preceded them, but we all in Queens and New York loved, and we're so proud of Joe DiMaggio, who, by the way, opened an Italian restaurant down the block from our house in Queens.
Did you go there?
Every Friday.
What was the best food you remember from there?
Well, you know, the pasta with white clam sauce. And it wasn't a creamy
No, it was oil and garlic.
It was oil and garlic
And red pepper.
breadcrumbs. Was there some breadcrumbs? Certainly Parmesan cheese. Anyway, I loved the white clam sauce. So that's what I remember most about them. And in baseball, I became an executive with Major League Baseball. Once again, one of the only women, sure. Just like when I was in the Navy. And of course, just like for you, Susan, in Congress. Yeah. I'm so proud of you that at such a young age, you ran for Congress from Staten Island and you won. Yeah. And there they were, once again, all the guys. They so respected you, but you had to work hard.
You have to, like everybody, you have to prove yourself. But surely when you're a 5'2" woman, I was sworn in Congress on my 32nd birthday, but I was amazing. Minority leader of the city council at 27. So, but it goes back to the heritage. You know, I start to think about, we found out my ancestors ago from Calabria, we had 11 kids. 4 went to Brazil, 6 came to the United States. The one girl out of 11 stayed in Calabria and became mayor of one of the small towns around there. My grandfather, my father's father, Sigismondo Molinari, came over when he was 6 years old, was a member of the New York State Assembly. And he only served 1 term, but he is also known as somebody he played the accordion, and he would go to nursing homes and hospitals and play the accordion to try and cheer up so many people. And then of course my father was borough president, member of Congress, and the member of the New York State Assembly. At the time when we both served, our district of Staten Island and Brooklyn was probably one of the largest Italian-American districts in the nation. And there was just, when you go back to those generations, that sort of unquestionable quest for public service, which to your point, how incredible to think of my grandfather coming off a boat at 6 years old. Now he had some family that accompanied him, but to be able to make your mark by public service is just something that is, and of course now is something that is so taken for granted, right? Particularly in New York, but across the country where there are so many Italian-American political leaders. But going back so many generations when there still was some controversy over being Italian and coming over from Italy, that you could gain the respect of so many people to be in public service. And I'm grateful that I came from that heritage and actually came from those 2 boroughs, because it was a joy to represent those individuals and fight for them.